magonjwa hii sijui kama ilipatikana namna gani.
Anaelezea kwa mapana kuhusu mlipuko wa Mpox barani Afrika.
Hello, I'm Esther Githu. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up.
The U.S. presidential election race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump remains tight as both candidates attempt to woo women voters. A humanitarian crisis erupts in Nigeria's Borno state after a dam near Maiduguri fails due to heavy rains. We'll have a report from Maiduguri. And in our entertainment report, the multi-disciplinary artist and motivational speaker Chardelle Moore talks to VOA's Jackson Mvunganyi about her new album, Inward Awakening. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54.
The U.S. presidential race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump remains tight as the candidates crisscross America, stamping for votes in battleground states. Trump, however, is ruling out another debate against Harris. Trump's declaration comes as the Harris campaign announces a massive fundraising haul of $47 million from nearly 600,000 donors in the 24 hours after Tuesday's high-stakes debate against Trump. VOA's Dora McCoy reports on the gender gap between Republicans and Democrats.
Since 1984, more women than men have voted in U.S. presidential elections. And, for the most part, more of them vote for Democrats than vote for Republicans. Vice President Kamala Harris's sudden entry into the race, following President Joe Biden's July withdrawal, appears to have fired up this voting bloc.
We have seen a pretty significant shift across a lot of different demographics, but with women in particular, who are now much more likely to vote for the Democrat at the top of the ticket than they were when it was Biden.
This election year, roughly 1 in 5 women say abortion rights is their key issue. In 2022, Supreme Court justices nominated by then-President Donald Trump helped eliminate constitutional rights to an abortion. Trump wants each state to decide abortion laws. Harris wants federal legislation to protect reproductive freedom nationwide.
She's trying to create a world where people all have their rights to their own decisions, their bodies, their choices, women's rights.
She's for the people, which is the middle class, which I am middle class, and the laws about women's rights.
Among female voters, the latest poll suggests that Harris leads Trump by anywhere from 9 to 13 points.
She gained a lot of younger women independents, nonpartisan voters under the age of 50, many of them under 40, who really got excited by her candidacy.
Black women are a lot more likely to vote for Harris now, Hispanic women. So, as we have seen her do better with a lot of these specific racial demographics or educational demographics, we have seen with women, that is really where that shift is coming from.
Male voters favor Trump by anywhere from 5 to 9 points, depending on the poll.
First, her being the candidate, this is like horrific to me because, first of all, she's not prepared to be president.
For months, we would barely ever see Joe Biden, and all of a sudden, Kamala Harris is the nominee for the Democratic Party when she was never nominated in the first place. She came out of nowhere.
The gender gap persists among young voters in Gen Z, where a majority of men under the age of 27 favor Trump, according to pollster David McLennan.
There has been an increase in terms of the admiration of some Gen Z young men for, swagger. It's very much a macho punch him in the face kind of thing.
McLennan says young men are politically socialized by online sources, where they often see and hear unflattering opinions about female leaders.
So they believe that women can't make the tough decisions. If the United States were to go to war or face international crisis, they don't believe that women have the ability to make the tough call.
White women were key to Trump's victory in 2016. He also won a majority of white women in 2020. In this race, the latest polls show Harris and Trump statistically tied among white women. Dora McQuarrie, VOA News, Washington.
Nigerian authorities are responding to a humanitarian crisis caused by the worst flooding in Borno State in 3 decades after a dam near Maiduguri failed due to heavy rains. Timothy Obiezu reports from Maiduguri.
Search and rescue operations have continued all week. Borno State officials say dozens of people have died and up to 1 million affected by the worst flooding year in 3 decades. The disaster was caused by the collapse of a local dam near Maiduguri due to heavy rainfall. Officials expect the death toll and the number of people affected to rise significantly as the waters begin to recede.
We've been here for 2 days. We have nothing to eat and the spaces are not enough. There's no space to sleep. Even when the little food comes, we have to struggle, and I have small kids. I can't struggle.
We have been trying our best to see that 3 square meals has been reaching them. Even this morning, if you come, you see we have been giving them a breakfast. So by 2, we give them lunch. By 6:30, dinner. Alhamdulillah, we are trying our best.
Hundreds of thousands forced to flee their homes are taking shelter in temporary camps like this. There are 10 of them currently in Maiduguri, and authorities plan to set up more camps with time. But the camps do not have enough facilities and food aid to go around. Borno State is already grappling with one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world, caused by the long years of conflict and made worse by food shortages and record inflation. The floods have now added a new dimension to the hardship, and many blame authorities for negligence.
I just arrived here yesterday, and so far I've not received anything, and there's no place for me to sleep. If not that, I met some people that I know. I hope the government does something about this so we can return to our homes. This is not home.
On Wednesday, the state government distributed relief materials and food to the impacted people in camps, and the federal government announced the release of $1.8 million in disaster funds. The United Nations have also called for immediate support to help those most in need and say the situation is especially worrying, coming at the height of a food and nutrition crisis in northeast Nigeria. It was only 2 years ago that Nigeria's worst flooding in a decade killed more than 600 people and displaced about 1.4 million others across the country. Timothy Obiezu, VOA News, Maiduguri, Borno State, Nigeria.
United Nations representatives within the Southern African Development Community are calling on member states to maximize cooperation on immigration. The International Organization for Migration says this cooperation will ensure that member states properly document immigrants from the region and use their skills to benefit both the host and the home countries. Tusok Malo has more from Johannesburg.
Lili Sanya, the International Organization for Migration Chief of Mission in South Africa, recently challenged countries in the Southern African Development Community to work together to benefit from migrants moving within the region. She was speaking at a conference on migration.
There is a global compact for safe, orderly and regular migration that has been agreed upon by countries to come together and address migration from a perspective of international cooperation. And this is a framework that can be used as a best practice for countries.
The United Nations office in South Africa also urges countries in the SADC group to craft policies that will allow migrants to maximize their contributions while utilizing their skills in the host societies.
It is always important that we deepen collaboration across a number of issues, migration being one of those, climate change, energy, financing for development. So talking about how people move, how to regulate that and ensure it happens in a safe, dignified and orderly manner is really at the heart of what the UN is trying to advance.
South Africa's large economy has attracted thousands of immigrants from the region. However, many are arrested and deported for lacking proper documents to live and work in the country. South Africa says proper documentation should form a key part of regional cooperation on immigration.
When you don't have knowledge or foresight of what you are actually dealing with, you end up having infrastructure that struggles to actually carry as many people as possible, and then service delivery gets to suffer as a result of that.
The United Nations Development Programme estimates that in 2019, migrants' remittances in the region totaled $7 billion.
It's about time now we change the narrative about migrants and not look at them as people who are creating problems everywhere, but as a resource for development.
Some experts say regional governments need immigration policies that allow migrants to use their skills.
We'll only go to the next level when people are able to sell their skills across borders, but also are able to help develop economies, not just of the countries of their birth, but also of the countries that they go to.
Many factors, such as drought and the lingering effects of the COVID pandemic, have weakened economies in Southern Africa. That means intra-regional movement of migrants is likely to increase, and UN experts say SADC states should grab the skills migrants bring or lose out. Tuso Kumalo for VOA News, Johannesburg.
The Botner Institute of Immune Engineering launched recently with a goal to advance global pediatric health. Supported by a $900 million Swiss francs investment from the Foundation Botner, the new institute is providing cutting-edge research that looks into the immune systems of different sets of young people to see how to improve health outcomes. To learn more, VOA Health correspondent Lino Mudu spoke with Alexander Scholz, the interim CEO of Foundation Botner.
So this institute really is about understanding better the immune system of young people, which is usually immature. And if you want to have, better diagnosis, treatment, and even prevent diseases for these young people, we need to invest more biomedical research. And that's basically our aspiration.
So understanding the immune system of young people, what does it mean exactly? What will the Institute be doing?
In fact, the Institute wants to integrate different sorts of expertise. Immunology, because we call it immune engineering, but also molecular and cellular engineering. Genomics, artificial intelligence is another big area of tools that will be used, and that will enable scientists, in fact, to study the immune responses of young people to an unprecedented level of detail. I give you an example. You can then see how individual cells in young people react to pathogens, for example, or, and that's important, how genetic diversity across young people in the world, this differs from Africa to Asia and Asia to Latin America, influences immune responses in young people. It's not all the same for all young people in the world. They have different immune responses to the different pathogens and challenges our body faces.
To what extent does the economic background of children affect their immune response, their immune system as a whole?
Yes, of course. I mean, you know, and I know there is a chain of reaction. If you live in rather difficult socioeconomic circumstances, that has a repercussion on your nutrition. That has a repercussion on your brain development. Do you have opportunities for education, for learning? All of that, of course, has an influence on our physical and mental health and our immune responses, of course. So there are very important interlinkages between these different factors, which we need to better understand. And they play differently because in every society we have richer and less rich people.
There's a plan to invest 900 million Swiss francs from the Foundation Botner. How is it going to be allocated?
The first important thing is that we as a Fondation Botner have created in the first place an independent foundation that actually will manage the institute. So this institute, because it's a research institute, will not be dependent on us. We will not determine the research agenda. but its own foundation will manage the institute. So we are to provide, as you say, the 900 million Swiss francs are to be provided over 15 years. So basically each year we will provide an amount of money. And of course, a bulk will go to, research groups and research work. So they're about now to recruit internationally, globally research groups. But of course, important parts will also go into clinical trials, the research activities in the different parts of the world, including Africa.
Fondation Botner has been around for quite a while. Talk to us about its mission and some of what it has been able to accomplish.
We as a foundation, we work with and for young people between 10 and 24 years of age to improve their well-being. And our focus is, we want to provide more enabling conditions for their well-being. So this is to say, let's take the example of mental health, with one of our areas, is to say, well, it's not just to improve the lives of 100 children with their mental health, but for example, how can we structurally improve the relationship with teachers, their parents, caretakers, where we know this has an immense influence on their mental health or whether they develop a mental health disorder. So we've been around since 2017. The focus is young people because we know they're the important base for our societies already today, but certainly tomorrow. So this is why we place emphasis on that. And you've heard the medical research. The other big area we are focusing, we as a fondation, is really addressing challenges on young people they face in the urban and digital space. Why is that? We know increasingly young people live in urban spaces around the world. Africa is a very good example, but also they're increasingly active in the digital space. They learn, they play, they interact with the digital place. And that comes with opportunities for education, for employment, for your health, but also it comes with challenges. We know what, the harm that digital technologies and systems can also do to young people. If we think about online bullying or, discrimination, for example, this happens in the digital space. So we want to address those opportunities and challenges for young people in the urban and the digital space.
That was Alexander Scholz, the interim CEO of Fondation Botner, speaking with VOA's Lino Mudu. Still to come in our entertainment report, multi-disciplinary artist Chardelle Moore talks about her new album, Inward Awakening. We'll be right back.
Ever heard the saying, you are what you eat? It's a powerful reminder of how our food choices impact our health. Recently, the idea of food as medicine has been overshadowed by cheap and convenient processed options. On this episode of Our Voices, we're diving back into everyday foods and exploring how they can actually help heal and boost our health. So get ready to fall in love all over again with whole and natural foods. Join the conversation each week right here on Our Voices.
You're watching VOA's Red Carpet. My name is Jackson Mvunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us each week right here on Red Carpet. We bring you the latest in
In other news, Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has dissolved the opposition-dominated parliament, paving the way for a snap legislative election after he took office on an anti-establishment platform. The new election is set to be held on November 17th, and analysts say President Faye's political party has a good chance of securing a majority. Malawi has recently recorded the sudden deaths of dogs that consumed meals prepared from maize husks contaminated with aflatoxins. Aflatoxins are toxic substances produced by fungi that grow on pet food ingredients like peanuts, corn, and other grains. Veterinary experts say the country has recorded 450 dog deaths since April. Originally from Zimbabwe, 36-year-old Tatenda Mungofa is the co-founder of a car manufacturing company headquartered in South Africa. His company strives to create vehicles made in Africa. Reporter Keith Baptist met with Mungofa in South Africa and has the story.
Cars driven in most African cities were manufactured in Japan, Korea or Europe. However, 36-year-old Tatenda Mungofa says he is determined to change that. And that change-driven mindset began when he was a child.
My dad was a mechanic, and I grew up with a passion for cars because I saw him working on a lot of other cars. And for me, I had a question, a burning question within me that was saying, what would it take to actually create the car?
Mungofa, who hails from Zimbabwe, launched one of Southern Africa's first motor vehicles called Moreza Auto Company, with two other co-founders from South Africa. The name translates to flag in the Shona language. Mungofa designs these cars by first drawing sketches and then working to transform them into actual prototypes. But the process, he says, isn't simple.
The journey to get to this point has not been easy. The process alone to manufacture cars is actually quite daunting. In Africa, it's not heard of that you want to start a manufacturing operation from start, let alone in the automotive industry.
According to the Zimbabwe National Statistics Agency, like most African countries, Zimbabwe relies on second-hand cars from Japan and Europe. In a bid to promote the local motor industry, the Zimbabwe government placed a ban on second-hand cars and vehicles older than 10 years. Zimbabwe's Minister of Industry and Commerce says, whilst other industries show growth in exports, vehicle imports still rank high on the list of imports in the country.
We have struggled to address the trade balance. While our exports are growing, our imports are also growing at a faster rate than our exports. We have imported over the last 5 years more than $3 billion worth of motor vehicles, including buses. In fact, we still have as policy that you are importing a fully assembled bus duty-free, but when you are bringing in parts to assembly, you pay 10% duty.
Given the huge import demands, Mungofa says his company can meet that demand locally. And the way to do that is by bringing in resources from the region.
In South Africa, we are located in Pilanesberg. We have 300 hectares of land there where we are setting up our 25,000 square meter manufacturing facility. In Zimbabwe, we are sitting on 100 hectares that we intend to also build another factory. But our plan is to go throughout the whole continent, setting up assembly plants and distribution points so that we better service the African market.
Given that most car manufacturing plants in the country have either folded or migrated to a more favorable market, Mungofa hopes to fill that gap. Keith Baptist for Voice of America in Harare, Zimbabwe.
It's time for our entertainment report, and joining us now is Jackson Mvunganyi, host of the radio program Up Front. He had an awakening conversation with Chardelle Moore. Hello, Jackson.
Hello, Esther. Now, Chardelle's album, Inward Awakening, is a multi-genre poetic collection that explores self-knowledge and empowerment. She says that she quit her job as a successful television host to embark on a journey of self-discovery through the arts, hoping to pass on the lessons for personal development and consciousness to others. I had a conversation with her about her journey as a motivational speaker, her music, and her connection to Africa. Let's check it out.
Born leader, call me Queen Sheba, Messiah, God is the fire. Give it a mic, I rock it right. Jumps for days, straight out of sight, on the light.
One of your tracks on this album is titled Africa Inside of Us.
Yes.
Talk to us about your own background and the identity and that connection to Africa that this album has revealed to you.
Yes. When you go within yourself, there's no way a human being, in my opinion, can go within themselves and not recognize and not honor Africa, even if you're white, because our identity is shifted to this place. right? So I've always had that type of belief, but Africa inside of us, it's so crazy, King, but a lot of times in my life, when I don't want to get emotional, but when I am scared to do something, when I face self-doubt, when I face negative thoughts, because this is all part of the human experience, I tap into that inner African power. I'm like, oh, no. My ancestors, we are beasts, okay? Yes. Our ancestors are beasts. Char, you can do the thing. And it's like something just goes within me and I'm like, whoo! And it's like, oh my gosh, I've been able to tap into this thing. And it's like this divine power and this divine protection because you honor who you are.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's amazing. And I try to tell people this stuff, and I tell people, once you get connected with your African identity, and however that looks like to you, because I'm a believer in not trying to force anybody to be anybody but themselves, but once you get connected to these roots, you start to grow because it's part of your foundation.
Yeah, so you find your, I guess, your inner gangster.
Yes,
that's
my
one
inner
of the
gangster.
one of the other tracks on.
Inner gangster. Hey.
So what is your inner gangster?
Woo. Yeah. Inner gangster is all about courage. In this journey of life, every one of us will be tested in some way.
Everybody got an inner gangster, tough and rooted like a soldier.
So inner gangster is to remind us about that courage that's in all of us. Because sometimes in life, it's gonna hit you. And you have to decide, am I gonna allow these things to take a hold of me? Or I'm gonna walk in that God power and get up. So inner gangster is all about being a fighter. And I've been a fighter since day one.
Fighting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We never stop fighting.
Obviously there's this negative connotation to gangster.
That's what people think. I was trying to do the positive thing about it because it's like that resilience to keep going and saying, you know what, I got this.
You got this. Yeah. Do you ever have moments of doubt or self-doubt where you think maybe I'm not doing the right thing, I've not done it the right way? How do you examine yourself and be honest with yourself when you're not sure of which path you're taking your own?
That's a deep question. I believe nobody's exempt from the human experience. We're all going to go through things. So anybody who says they don't have self-doubt or insecurities, they're lying. But I have to also realize that when I'm facing this negative energy, then I'm not allowing this thought to define me. Because once we start entertaining self-doubt, we go into a dark hole. And what happens is negative energy is so beyond powerful that it attracts other things. It's like once you start a dark thought, you're going to think about this, you're going to think about this. And living in lack is terrible for you. So when I face these negative thoughts, I allow myself to process it and realize like, okay, I am not my thoughts, and try to switch to something positive. It's a process, but it does work because the thoughts are always gonna come, but you have to realize I am not my thoughts.
And that is our entertainment report. Esther, back to you and happy Friday.
Thank you so much, Jackson. Be sure to also watch Jackson Mvunganyi on VOA's Red Carpet television show every Friday. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, have a great weekend.